from Sweet Zone Properties. I'm going to take you through this model that investigates the Cornerstone program for 8613 39B Avenue. It's currently January 2014. I'm doing this here from Thailand. I'm just outside of Chiang Mai. So there might be a little bit of sound in the background, but I'll take you through this model that I built. First of all, this is a very complex model, okay? So in finance, there's something called model risk, what that means is basically when you get to really complex models like this, there's a risk that I did something wrong. So you got to take everything I did here with a bit of a grain of salt. Complex analysis is great because it proves the robustness of your financial plan. It's also not great because you can rely on the model a bit too much and expect it's always true, and it might not be true. So before I manipulate any variables here, I'll just take you over the high level of what's going on. So first of all these blue inputs, you can actually edit them yourself. If you ever get a red input like this one here, the discount rate, don't edit that because it won't actually do anything. Some of them you can edit, and I've kind of made notes along here where you can. Some of them are just scenario analysis. So here, qualifying labor, for example, you can choose yes or no. Same as the number of legal bedrooms, you can choose how many. Okay, so at a pretty high level here, net present value. So why do I use that instead of something like ROI? Well, ROI is basically financial kindergarten. It just is not a very good measure of how much money you're going to make. It's good as a very first brush. I use it when I'm just punching numbers on a piece of paper. But when it comes to actually deciding whether to buy a place or not and whether to go or not go, you need NPV. It's really the same idea. Imagine an ROI of 18%. If net present value was 0, that would mean that I would make exactly 18%. Okay? So net present value is a little bit greater than 0. So what that means is I make a little bit more than 18%. Cash on cash return on this property, because that's all that I ultimately care about, is the cash. Okay, so let's take a look at the high level. So these ones here, all these inputs here are my best guess of what's probably going to happen in the future. I can't defend every single one of them. All I can tell you is I read quite a bit of economics, and this is what I truly believe is most likely outcome. So going through all of that analysis, after I put in my very best guesses for everything, I come up with a net present value of 95 bucks. So it's not like I'm making 95 bucks. It means I'm making 18% return after everything is accounted for, and I'm still making a little bit more than 18%. So it's actually a very strong investment. So let's take a look at some of these things here. So spider chart. This here is all about robustness, okay? It's all about robustness. Number 3, the column number 3, these are my best guess for where all of my funding, everything is going to be. I think this is probably where it is. And these are all NPV numbers. So anytime you see a positive number, that means you're making more than that 18%. Anytime you see a negative number, you're making a little bit less, potentially a lot less. So number 3 is the best guess, 2 is somewhat likely, 4 is somewhat likely, 1 is fairly unlikely, 5 is fairly unlikely. And so just looking at the slopes here, we can figure out what's our probably most sensitive variable. As you can see right there, property value growth. Point number 5 is definitely the most sensitive variable. That's really not surprising because I have a tap out here in year 10 where basically I sell the property and I take my money. Why 10 years? I know it seems arbitrary in finance. This time it's not. It's because with the Cornerstone program, I have a caveat from the city for 10 years where if I sell it, I lose my grant funding. So I don't want to sell before 10 years. I got to hold it for at least that long. And basically what this here is based on is, so I got property value. So what kind of expected appreciation? I said 3.5%. I think that we're in for a very strong economy in the next couple of years. And beyond 3 to 5 years, I'm completely guessing. But you know what? It's Alberta. I don't think you could invest anywhere better in the world. Other than some austerity measures in Europe, the world economy is improving here in 2014. Almost everyone thinks so. At bare minimum, even if things go fairly poorly, we're looking at inflation for the next foreseeable future. Yes, we could have a price production and a collapse of values, but I have a sensitivity analysis if things ever did go wrong, and we can take a look at that later. This here's called a tornado chart. So this is the absolute worst case. You'll always see that to the left of what I think is potentially possible. And on the right-hand side, this is what I think is probably the best case of what's really potentially possible. You see the bands here are really simple. One more thing. Oh, I'm going to stop.